Chill.
Hey, man. This your boy, Mr. Church, man. Turn up with me.
The old me gone, the new me here. I walked on water without no fear. Somebody better tell the world this my year. The old me gone, the new me here. I walked on water without no fear. Somebody better tell the church this my year. The old me gone, the new me here. I walked on water without no fear. Somebody better tell the devil this my year. The old me gone, the new me here. I walked on water without no fear. Somebody better tell a hater this my year. That turbulent water, yeah, boy, that's my type. Look at my stance, I'm ready to fight. Mention the challenge and get me so hyped. Let me call my daddy.
All right. Welcome to the Fellowship Hall. We are here once again. We are here with some crazy topics, some good topics that we believe that everyone will benefit. So without any further delay, I'm going to bring my man, my friend, the Christian hip hop artist, the pastor himself, Mr. Church.
What's going on, my brother? How you doing, Reverend?
I'm good, partner. I am good. I am good. How you been?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm excited.
Good.
Like you said, we got some juicy topics tonight. So tonight should be good. Tonight should be real good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And once again, coming with us, joining us is my man, my friend, for years and years. My brother, Reverend Morrell.
What's going on, brothers? How y'all doing this evening?
Good,
man.
Good. All right. Yeah, this
ready
good topic. Good topic. I don't know if we even gonna get to all of them because that one is huge. That one that church been bringing. That's a big one. Big one.
Most definitely.
That's gonna be
most definitely, man. So let me see here. We're gonna dive into this thing, man, and because I know it's gonna take us some time. And we're gonna break it down into 3 different categories, fellas. So our first topic is from boys to men, the mental health struggles we don't talk about. Right? The mental health struggles that we don't talk about. And I think it's an excellent topic because all of us has been boys and now men, but we have also raised boys, right, to men. And I'm still in the midst of, y'all know me, I still got a little one.
You started over.
I started over. He's 12.
Old Abraham.
and on top of that, we just brought in 3 foster kids. So and they're younger than him.
Yeah,
they're younger than him. So we're gonna talk about the mental health struggles that we don't talk about. So the first one we're gonna talk about is the young men mental health from grade school to college. All right. So from grade school to college, and I'm gonna just start that off just a little bit because my son right now in middle school, just started middle school this year. We dread it because we knew middle school hit, personality change. That personality change. Why? It's because it's a different type of pressure. It's a different type of pressure that he's under. From wanting to be noticed, right? Wanting to be noticed, wanting to fit in. On top of that, now he's recognizing girls, right? So he's recognizing girls. On top of the pressure that the schoolwork is even more difficult, right? So it's coming from everywhere. And you know, at that age, that 12 age, if you ain't like everyone else, then you are outcast.
Yeah.
And if you become that outcast, it feels like the world is against you. it feels like the world is against you. So my brothers, chime in, help me deal with this 12-year-old in middle school. Even when in elementary school, though, there was some pressure there that we had to deal with, and we're trying to keep him in Christ, feeling to carry around that joy, that peace, and that freedom to not allow these things to weigh down on him. And so we're going to deal with it on that aspect, and then we're going to move up to the high school and college. How about that?
I'll jump in. I'll jump in first. I think one of the greatest things that we offer our kids is being present fathers. And I say that because I had a conversation with my real father. He just passed this year in January, and I had a conversation probably a couple months with him before I passed, and it was like an epiphany for him. And I said one of the worst things, and I said I don't mean it in a because we're beyond looking at things as bad. But I said one of the toughest situations that I face is not having you present in my life. I said because you have some answers to some of the things that I'm going to deal with, because you're going to be able to see yourself. And so I say that to you, when you see your son, you really see yourself. It's you going through that process all over again. Of course, he has a mixture of his mother in him too, but at the same time, a lot of his choices are going to be choices that you made, because he's really you. He's another copy of you. And so when I think about my sons at that age, one of the greatest advantages that they had was that I was a present father, and I believed in having conversation with them. And I believed in having authentic and raw, because I told them a long time ago, once I set them on the bicycle, and I let them go, I literally let them go. And I get out the way, because that's their process and they need to learn it. I'm there, I'm watching, you fall, I'm there to pick you up, but I respect your process enough to let you walk through your process. But at the same token, to make my point, the fact that we're there and we're present and we see symbolisms of us, we're able to talk to some areas where they may struggle in. When it comes to confidence in those grades and dealing with girls and maybe struggling through your schoolwork, we're able to speak to that place and bring them understanding and bring them peace. So I think that that just your son having his father there is just a blessing and an advantage to some sense.
Absolutely, I would agree with that 100%. As you were listing out all of the kind of issues and problems as you're going into like the middle school age, one of the things that we don't actually deal with that actually happens is the size difference that starts to occur, because that affects confidence, that affects thought process. As some kids are having their growth spurts before others, the tall versus the short, the strong versus the weak, all that starts to play out more as you get into middle school, where it wasn't really that in elementary school. And so you have that on top of all the other things, right? So being there to help them to navigate, but it's more than just helping them to navigate. It's helping them to think, helping them to understand that there is a process they need to go through. It is not operating on feelings all the time. It is not operating based upon what somebody else said. You got to learn to think for yourself. And so I'm like church, when I was raising my son here in the house, we talked. Like it wasn't just me fussing at you when something happened. We needed to talk. We talked beforehand. I talked to him about what was going on, sometimes even between me and my wife. Like, I love your mama. This is, we both Christian. We go in the same way, but she getting on my everlasting nerve. These are the things that you're going to have to deal with. I was telling them all, like, we have to be real with this thing and not think that they're just going to figure it out. But getting to the middle school, my son, when he went to middle school, he was shorter. He was smaller. He had his growth spurt later, but he was smaller and he cried. Like, he was at the table crying because of all of the pressure that was on him. And I was just trying to help him understand and just, because I didn't have that issue when I wasn't the smallest kid, but I was ultra athletic. So it didn't, kids didn't bother me like that. But for him, having to navigate a whole new world with whole new people and being smaller, having the differences in the work and all of those things, and having the pressure as a Black child in America on top of that was just too hard for him. And if it wasn't for us having those conversations and showing him how you're going to get through it and having those understanding how to see this world, how to navigate this world, how to think through this world, he would have been in a lot of trouble because he couldn't handle it. And my wife could help on a lot of other things, but you can't help him be a man because you ain't never been one. Like you just don't understand that part of it.
Right.
So that is an advantage that he does have, he had as a father. But here's the other thing that I think, as we don't talk about it, usually, I can't say usually, some parents, and I know a lot of this has happened in the church, at least when I was growing up, and people that I've seen, we don't give the kid the space to be wrong. We don't give them the space to mess up. We want them to be perfect, knowing we weren't, but we want them, and every time something happens, we don't teach them from the incident. We punish them first and then try to teach them. And sometimes you got to teach them and not do the punishment because they don't understand. And we don't give kids enough room to fail in order to learn. You can't learn everything through punishment of right and wrong. Like that's not going to register with everyone it didn't register with all of us at every turn. Sometimes we're like, okay, well, this is worth the whooping. We didn't understand we just knew it was worth the whooping. I'm finna go do this. If they catch me, they catch me. The whooping ain't enough. But we didn't understand that it was bigger than the whooping, right? So that's my point. I just think we have to be careful that we're not squeezing them too tightly and not teaching them versus just punishment, right, wrong kind of thing.
Yeah. And just to elaborate a little on what Church said about being present, I do think that's a big part. And he does do some things that when he do it, I was like, man, if that ain't me, man, who I was. But my father wasn't present in my life, and I was raised by my grandparents. So I did have that father figure. And I thank God because he was more than a father figure. He was a manly figure. Like he was a manly man. Like he worked on cars. He was a longshoreman, worked on cars, went fishing. I had all my great uncles around. We have a home. We all lived on a homestead, so everybody's house was within walking distance. And all of them, if they weren't longshoremen, they were into masonry. Most all of them had their own business. So I had that presence around me, but my dad wasn't there. And the crazy thing is that I would see my dad in town, out and about in town. Whenever I seen him, you let anybody tell you, my dad, he was the coolest joker in town. Like this dude was the only dude I knew that had his name on his tires on his car. Where everybody else had white walls or white letters, he had his name going around his tires. So he was
he was different.
Yeah, your dad had music every time he was walking.
Hey, yeah. But I would see him, and I wanted to be like him. And I wanted to be like him. And the men that I had around me, that's not who I wanted to be like. I wanted to be like my dad, but he wasn't there, even to the point where, I mimicked his walk. To the point now people say we walk alike. So man, you and your dad walk alike. You know what I'm saying? Like I mimicked his walk as a kid, and so I thank God, like you said, that we are present in our kids' life because we don't need outsiders Because to be honest, my dad, he wasn't in my life like that, so he was an outsider. And we don't need outsiders to have that type of impression over our kid. So I'm with you. That presence has to be very important. Now, I will also say, and we haven't mentioned that we have to make sure that we're walking right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, we have to make sure that we're walking right. And that means that most of the time, our kids our sons they're not gonna look at us as the cool ones. We're not the cool ones because we're walking right. Listen, my son said something a couple of weeks ago that crushed my heart, right? Crushed my heart, which he knows that I'm gonna always be there for him. But he said to me, well, he said to his mama said to me, and then me and her had a conversation, that if someone was to break into the house, he felt like mom would protect him. Dad would try to preach to the people. Why they breaking it? Why they breaking it out?
Thou shalt not steal.
And I was like, what?
Oh,
but he was saying,
God.
like, I know, he said, Dad, I know who you used to be. I've heard the stories of who you used to be, but you're not that guy anymore. You're not that guy anymore.
You just don't understand. It never leaves us. We just learn to yield to the Holy Spirit a lot more. But don't get it twisted.
Don't get it twisted.
When the time and opportunity comes, that ain't our first reaction.
And another further, Rev, we understand the consequences associated with it.
Yes.
See, a lot of times when you move like that, it's a lot of dudes in jail because they didn't think about the consequences. Yep. They got caught up in the moment. They made and you know it's crazy. Even in those lines, I know in Tennessee, I knew about a dude that broke into somebody's house. The person shot and killed him, but there's a law in Tennessee that says you got to give the person a chance to escape. Or here it is, you can't shoot them in their back.
That's right.
So that means that they got to be coming to you to attack you in order for you to use deadly force in a way that you kill them. Or you're held accountable and they've broken your house. Yeah. So what a child doesn't understand is in the wisdom that we attain from growing up and in our experiences is that we know the consequences behind all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more deadly to respond in the way you want me to than to respond in the way that I know how to.
Yeah.
Right. And it's crazy. I'm gonna go Bible. That's what got Judas caught up. He wanted Jesus to respond a certain way, and because he did it, now I'm not with you. So we can just go. We can go crazy with that one. That's just.
It's so true. It's so true. But that's also a part of just the culture in America where they're being indoctrinated in what a man is supposed to look like, and it's different than what a man actually is and what we actually show. Right. And so they have a hard time, especially as they're getting to middle school. They're just going to notice different things. You're going to see different things now. You're going to look at the world differently. It just is.
Mm-hmm. And
so when you see your dad as the boring guy who's always there, doing the right thing, saying the right thing, doing, he's that actual man that he's supposed to be, boring their dad all the time, always there. They look at other stuff and they say, well, that looks cooler. That looks different. That looks funner. And they don't realize what's actually behind that. And so to them, they don't realize, and I know I didn't realize it. My son has called me later on in life and said, now that he understands and being a father, that, okay, yeah, I can appreciate it more now. But it would be so much different and you don't want them to experience it if they didn't have that. They would understand what they would really want between the two, but they don't know that yet. until they get out later, experience and realize there's a whole lot of people without their dads, and they would trade places with you in a heartbeat.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you know, that's just the plot. That's just what we have to do. We didn't get it all at the beginning, and they're not going to either. But it is very tough for them as they're trying to figure out a world. And again, honestly, just being in America as a young black man trying to figure out how all this works together, because none of it to that mind makes it don't all make sense to us. So
Right.
you know it don't make sense to them.
No.
And so you got to navigate all of that, and you wondering why your teacher is talking in a tone to you that he or she is not talking in the same tone to Jenny over here, or you know, Tommy over here, and you don't really understand why, because y'all are all the same, or you thought y'all were the same. So yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. You said something real. You said that a lot of times we don't give them the space to be wrong. And I think that's important. And I think what goes along that you was really talking about having a comfortable, we need to have a comfortable relationship with them, that they feel like they can come and talk to us, and not go outside of our circle, not rely on those outside of the circle. Because if we give them the space where, you know, they feel comfortable enough to come and talk to us about the things that's weighing heavy on their hearts, then when they do make the mistake, I think that creates that, okay, see, this is what we was talking about. You made the wrong decision here. And now, you know, it's not all I got to chastise you. It's about, okay, next time, how do you handle that? How do we handle that? And just steering them back on path. I think that's very important. And so I thank you, Rail, for bringing that up, because it has to be that type of relationship. Because guess what? That's the relationship that God has with us. He allows us to come to him and talk to him, you know, and he gives us the Holy Spirit to get us back in line. But and it ain't always him bringing that hammer down on us all the time.
Thank God.
For real.
Yeah. So, you know,
I think also with us and our young men, it is important to get back to some of the things that we used to do as a community, where we raised our children together. Yes. It wasn't just, you know, you do it your way and getting mad if somebody says something to your kid about being right or wrong, like that, those things, because no matter how good of a relationship I have with my son, he's not going to tell me everything. He was never going to do that. So there got to be some people outside of that maybe he can talk to about certain things that I know still love God, and you know, we can communicate. If it's something bad enough, of course they tell me, but I trust them to hold that information and work with them on that information. And then when it gets to a certain level, or if it gets to a certain level, they're going to bring me in. But if it's, you know, something they just need to reinforce, they're going to do that. I think we missed that a little bit because we all want to be in our own houses and we're worried about what somebody might say, or how this person is doing that and this, and that's the wrong idea. Because if I can give the same without talking to, TJ is my godson, so I can tell him some stuff, and he'll ask me or talk question. I'll say those same things that his dad's saying, but me and his dad haven't talked. And so it reinforces, okay, well, yeah, maybe my dad doesn't know what he's talking about. So it strengthens his relationship with his dad because we on the same page and we see it similarly. So he can ask me the question. He ain't going to get no different answer. He going to still get Christ. He's still going to get the experience. He's going to get those things. And when we do that, we actually strengthen the bond between him and his father. It doesn't take anything away. It actually reaffirms it. Yeah. So I think sometimes we miss that.
It's community.
Yeah. Exactly what it is. You're absolutely right. And that's what's missing today. That is what's missing today is the community coming together to help raise our kids. Man, so let's go to the next level. All right, because next level is a different type of pressure, right? It's a different type of pressure. When you hit the high school level, the pressure comes from, I think, from your peers, it comes from not once they were talking about it and trying to press you, and it was all about you ain't cool. And now when you get in high school, if you don't do this, if you don't do this, if you don't do that, so now the pressure changes a little bit to you have to do this, you have to do that, you know. And from there, moving up to college, like that's a whole different type. That's a whole different type of pressure, you know, because you know in high school, if you ain't in the in crowd, you definitely, you know, no one wants to even deal with you. Yeah.
I think it's crazy. I was having a conversation with my son. It's funny today. My son is a senior, and it's crazy because he's in a place where what I'm reinforcing with him is ownership of your life. I think that's the biggest. Like in middle school, you can kind of hide behind your parents, but when you make a bad decision, it can be cast off as bad parenting somewhere. That's why that boy doing that, even though you still making choices. In middle school, you can kind of get away with my daddy and my mama and them, whatever. In high school, you take more ownership of your choices.
More ownership.
And so that's what I was telling my son. He's getting ready to graduate, and he's in this transitional thing where he was set on going to the military. I don't know, Dad. I don't know if I want to do trade. I kind of don't know what So I said this. I said, listen, I'm not going to push you either way because this is your choice. And what I'm going to do is back up your choice because this is your choice. If I tell you which way to go, then it's my choice. And now I've steered you in a way that I want you to go that you may not be passionate about. And so you're not going to get the fulfillment that you're looking for. You may not excel. You know, you may not want to get at your 100% because this is what Dad told me to do. And I really don't want to do it. And I said, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you that you have to decide. You have to own your choice. You have to take responsibility for your life. And then I'm going to support that. So I think the biggest change from middle school to high school is just more ownership of your life and your choices.
It definitely is that. But I also see another change where, remember in elementary school, everybody was your friend. Everybody was your friend. Everybody got cupcakes. Everybody birthday. Everybody got everything. Middle school, you see a little bit of differences. You start to see the separation based on race a little bit more and stuff like that. You see a little bit more with the sports versus those who are not. But it is it's so much more exacerbated when it gets to high school. Like those divisions are way wider. But it's the choice when you get into that 9th grade year, your first year of high school, of who you're choosing to be your peers. Because everybody's not your peer. Everybody's not your peer. They may be the same age, same grade, but there are people who are in the same grade as you that you could care less about. You don't care what they got to say or anything. Them not your real peers. You're choosing which peer group you want to try to fit into. And sometimes that choice is the wrong choice, and it puts you on a path of constantly trying to fit in with a group that you were never supposed to be in the first place. And that makes it very hard. And we don't, to your point, Church, because at that age, you're still getting a lot of your identity from outside, or you feel like it's outside and you're not owning that quite yet. That makes for a hard few years when you pick the wrong group.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I think some people just don't. You see it on TV, watch it, do all this stuff. You think you're supposed to be in that group, and you were never meant to be in that peer group. It was just never your group. But you try so hard, and it's the same. I see this a lot of times especially with young Christian men, young boys who have a good foundation. When they get to that space where they're still trying to fit in with those groups, but it's not who they are. They have to try extra hard to try to be like them. And the group knows that you don't even belong. They know you don't belong. But you got to try extra hard to prove yourself and prove yourself, to go that extra mile to prove that you down, you hard, you this, you that. And you just picked the wrong group.
Yeah. So let me ask this, because I hear like the ownership of your life and the peer choice. So one of the things that happens is we as parents, when they get to that stage, we back off a little bit because now they have to take ownership. So we back off and free up some of their life, right? That life that they have to take ownership of. We free up that. So now they're going into that. I get a little bit more free will.
Yeah.
I get a little bit more free will, but they have to take ownership of that. And not let it run rapid. Don't take it as a, I get this freedom. I get to just do whatever I want. We're not saying that, but I think that ownership runs into that as Rel was saying, that peer choice. So now I'm getting a little bit more freedom from mom and dad. And I get to hang around my boys. I get to hang with this group who I think is my peers, but like you said, Rev, you get in with them, you start entangling with them, and they start to realize that they're not the same. They're not the same. They do different things. So now the pressure comes on them as being a square because you don't do what we do. And in order to be one of us, you got to do this. You have to do that. And that's where I think that relationship that should have been established in elementary and middle school comes into play, where they're able to come and talk about this and express themselves. I'm being pressured to do this. How do I handle this? And sometimes it's not as easy as for us to say, you need to drop them. You need to get away from them. Because if I get away from them, I'm the outcast again. And I don't have any friends. I don't have nobody having my back. And then you get talked about.
I got a question here on this because, I've seen this happen. I had this experience a little bit as well, especially when it comes to our young men. When they do have two parents in the home, or even if they don't, sometimes I've found in just conversations or even in my own experience that maybe one parent is more willing to let go and give the space than the other. Right. And so when that happens, you have this collision of, you got to give them some room to grow and breathe, but I don't want them to fail. So I want to be all over and take care of everything for them because I just don't want them to fail. And that can create a tension that makes the child unwilling to talk about what's really going on, because if the parents ain't on the same page with it, that just makes it a little harder for those discussions to happen. Because you think, well, because kids are smart. Well, if this may get me in trouble, I'm going to go to the parent that's always trying to cover me, or I'm going to go for this. I'm going to always go to the parent that's always trying to let me have the will and freedom to do. And now there's this rift that can be brought into the house because we're just not on the same page. And sometimes this is not even just, it can happen in single parent homes where you don't have the balance there. You don't have anyone to help talk through some of those things because you're okay. I raised them to think and do on their own. Well, this ain't one of them instances, but I have realized that sometimes the parents aren't talking enough to understand what their kid needs at the moment. And so the two parents or those who are influential in the life are coming at them from different angles, and it's creating more confusion for the child, which then just creates another problem that they don't want to deal with. And so I just thought we'd throw that out just because I wonder if anybody else had seen or heard or experienced that kind of thing, because I think it impacts the way that our young boys, look at how our relationship with them, continues to develop, and then their choices later on.
I can speak to that a little bit. I didn't have in my first kid's life, I didn't have the two parent scenario because my first wife passed, right? Mm-hmm. And so 4 of my children were raised primarily by me. You know, at some point I did get married, and even in that blended family, the kids kind of lean to the person who they know is, you know, especially as the parent that was with them after the other parent passed was a man. It's more of kind of like not a dominant presence, but a leadership presence. Mm-hmm. So they always looked to me, you know what I mean? Because in that time period after their mother passed, I kind of established myself as a leader. I got y'all, you know, don't worry, Daddy's here, right? And so what I realized was, because I am a man, it worked good for my guys, my boys, right? Mm-hmm. Rightfully so, because they got but my daughter has a disconnect in some sense to her emotional side that she would have got, I believe, if her mother was, you know, present in her life, right?
Right.
So now what I see is like she's just as sporty as us, and mm-hmm. she pumps her fist, and you know she's they better get right on that field, right? And even in her relationships, she's a leader, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, sometimes I listen to her to them kids that she go to college with, and I go, "Oh my God, are you their mama? Like, did you clean up your room? You know you better clean up." And I'm like, whoa, and they call her, but they lean to her like that, right? So me and my wife had the conversation, and I think it's good that for the last 4 or 5 years, she's been present in her life, and my wife is a nurturer, like extreme nurturer. And so it's good because she's able to draw out the softer side of my daughter that as much as I wanted to, or as much as I saw it, like I thank God that he allowed me to see. As much as I was like, dang, she not tapped into that portion of herself, even dating. Like, I never seen a dude. And you know, me and my daughter, we have conversations. So I know that her womanness is safe kept. But I always said, like, where to do that? And she just was so boy, and she's not the other way either, because we talk like this. She's not that way. She like boys. She's just such, you know, it's weird. But I'll say this: I make the space, and me and my wife, we have these conversations. I'm intentional about allowing her to have a relationship with my daughter that pulls that womanly side. So to make my point is, I think when it's like that, the parents don't make it an issue in front of the child, because that's never good. But behind closed doors, whatever decision the person makes in front of the child, let's roll with it, so that the child doesn't see a ripple. But when we get behind those closed doors, maybe late at night before we lay our heads on that pillow, or even while we laying our heads on the pillow, let's make sure that our goal is for the betterment of the child. And because our goal is for the betterment of the child, that tug of war that we got going on of covering him, or covering him or leaving him that space, or him and her, let's make sure we find a healthy balance. Yes. I get that you are a natural nourisher. I respect that. But I'm a natural leader. And leaders understand that in order for a person to fully develop, there has to be a space that allows them to do that. So I think you got to have those intentional conversations, and then find that healthy balance as two parents, you know, seeking the betterment of that child.
Yeah, most definitely. On which it has to be a balance between the parents, even if they look at things differently. That's one of the things that me and my wife, when we got together and got married, our family is a blended family, and it's a partnership when it comes down to this. So there is really no decision made for the kids that isn't discussed with the other parent. So we do it that way, and it works for us. It works for us. So even if there is, like, one of us had to make an executive decision, a spur of the moment, the other one, it isn't far behind before they know. Like, listen, I had to make an executive decision on this, Now, if there's an issue, we can talk about it, and then we can go back to the child, like, listen, I made that decision, spare of the moment, but after talking to your mom or whatever, listen, we think this is the better outcome. Do it this way, you know, let's handle it this way. And we pretty much been like that since pretty much we got together. And so, and regardless, like the kids are always going to see, you know, when brothers and sisters, they always going to see where you treat one differently than the other and all that stuff. Because, you know, I had to have that conversation with all of my kids. Like, listen, it ain't that I'm treating anyone different. Is that I'm treating each person according to their personality, according to who they are,
what their needs are. Yeah.
What their needs are. Right. It's not. I'm not treating anyone more special than the other. I have one of my daughters who is a football fanatic, you know, where some of my sons aren't. So when football is on, which one am I going to call, you know, and talk to? Which one I'm going to talk to? You know what I'm saying? I'm going to talk to the one that's a football fanatic, especially because she's a Steelers fan. So I got to talk to her.
You know, we don't do all our. You know, we all have issues when we raise our kids. We forgive you for that
one. Right. Parents make mistakes too.
They do. Yes, they do. They do. But we have to. We have to. When it comes down to parents, because we can be part of that depression.
Yeah,
we can't be part of that and unknowingly knowing that we're part of the problem.
Yep.
That we're putting too much on our kids.
And we can't get, as parents, we can't get too wrapped up in ourselves when it comes to our kids, because it is a constant moving target. Like when you're dealing with these children, it's a constant moving target. So in this instance, being far enough away is good, but the next one, it could be, you need to be all in, you need to be up at the school or whatever. Like you can't just do it one way. And I've noticed over the years, especially as I've been, as a coaching, you're starting to see a lot more parents, as they get to a certain age, they just like go hands off. And then you have the other ones who are all on top of them, and there's no give and take, there's no in and out, there's no keeping that right distance and trying to work through it. It's like weird, and I'm noticing it a lot, and it doesn't usually turn out well. Either scenario, whether you're all over them and then they go to college and they don't really understand life because you haven't really had you taking care of everything for them. They get to a college out of town and they just go buck wild, or they get taken advantage of because they just don't know. And then you have the ones who been doing stuff since they was 9th grade, and now they doing whatever in school. But it's just like, how much of life you trying to cram in like 3 or 4 years? Like you ain't gonna live beyond that. Like it's some wild stuff going on. And I think parents have. I think one of the important things that, we talked about community, in raising the child, but I think that community is also good for the parents, because all of us, as we had our first kid, what did we base our raising our kids off of? How we were raised.
Yep.
But we didn't know at the time if everything was good or everything was bad, or what we should take and what we shouldn't. And you have to learn all those pieces. But by being in community and other people who you can trust and talk to about certain situations, they can give you a different perspective on some of those things, so that you don't have the pitfall with your child and hurt the relationship to a point where maybe it don't even get repaired completely. But I don't think we look at it that way. We're so busy trying to not have people in our business. Like, I need people to help me. I needed people to help raise my kids. I needed them.
Yeah.
Can I add to that, please, real quick? And I say this to my kids all the time. One of the greatest things that happened to me growing up was the summer times when I was allowed to go spend time with my grandparents. Every summer, my parents would ship me off, and I would go get another level of wisdom imparted in me, because I would sit on the porch of my grandfather in Montgomery, Alabama, and I would just watch how he moved, and everybody called him boss, and you know what I mean? I would just, and when we were sitting still, we would have conversations that, man, would just push my train of thought forward by leaps and bounds, right? But you fast forward now, man, people don't do that no more. My kids have yet to been able to spend a summer with their grandparents, and I yearn for it, but but the scenarios are different now. Grandparents just not doing that no more. And so there's a whole level of learning and training and everything is just lost because that's there no more.
Yeah. You're right.
Most definitely.
You're right.
Definitely.
You're right.
Woo. So we have to be careful as parents that we don't put too much pressure on our kids. Now let's take it up a notch, fellas. I see already the top is already up there. We're gonna take it up a notch. The young men mental health. Nope, we're gonna go back to the college. Young men mental health for the college athlete and superstar, because I know Church wanted to touch this. He really wanted to touch this. And Church, I know you probably don't really know it, but we have an ex-superstar on the screen with us right now.
I've been hearing him talk now.
Yeah. So you know, he played. I know of he played semi-pro ball. So what type of pressure for the athletes and the superstars is in college do they get? And we know that, you know, just recently we had Lacey from LSU just commit suicide. And I wanted to bring that up too, fellas, because a lot of people don't know. But the 988 Lifeline says that from the age 10 to 24, the second leading cause of death from ages 10 to 24 is suicide.
Wow.
I can believe it.
Didn't know that.
In men.
I can believe it.
Yeah.
I can believe it. You know, on top of the fact that there's so many men not in the household, I can believe that 100%, because the pressure, everybody has pressure, man, woman, child, whoever. All of us got pressure. All of us got these things that we have to deal with. But you know, the man's responsibility of the pressure is just a little bit different. The way that it's viewed in society is different. The pressure of trying to take it on without any help is different than it is for others. You know, it's okay for everyone else to ask for help. It's not necessarily seen as being okay. It is okay, but it's not seen as being okay by a lot of people, you know, for a man to ask for help. So you add on top of that, when you have a young person who is good at a sport, having to now get the pressure from what's on social media, because it's even crazier now, because people telling you you suck, or you know, why didn't you catch that ball? You should die, and all kind of foolishness like this. You got people betting on you, and you have your family, you know, sometimes a neighborhood trying to make sure that you make it so that you can pay for all their stuff, and no one is actually checking on you. You are now a commodity. You're not a person. And when you start to look at yourself and people start to look at you as a commodity, you are now at a point where you don't believe you're worth anything if this doesn't work out. And that's scary. And you know, there's countless high schools. Everybody ain't going to the top D1 schools and balling out in their first year. But some of them they've been the man since they were 5.
Right.
Now you getting on campus and you 4th string and don't know if you're gonna ever play. That's a whole different ball game when everybody been telling you great your whole life and you ain't had to do too much and this, that, and the other. And your family and your neighborhood is looking to you to come back and with all the money and do this and do that. And you don't know who you are anymore because you standing on the sideline with your helmet and your mouthpiece and you don't know if you're gonna play. It's a different ball game, man. And until we start to make sure that our young people understand their personages and how important they are as a person before their sports career and after, we're going to see more of this, you know, things where they're out there feeling they're invincible and don't know how to actually talk about their feelings. And then when something happens, they don't think they can live beyond the mistake. And it's a sad thing. but I know, like with my kids, I told them, when I raise you, as I raise you, when you leave here, you don't owe me nothing. You don't owe me nothing. First of all, you didn't ask to be here. You here, based on decisions that I made, me and your mama made, or whatever. Like, so I'm not raising you so that you can go get $1 million so that you can pay me back. No, you don't owe me 1 red cent. I want you to be the best person because you're important to me as a person, regardless of whatever you do. I don't care if you do synchronized swimming or you play football or you don't do none of that. I'm still going to be your dad. And I need you to understand how important you are to me beyond all the stuff that you can do. And we miss that a lot of times in our neighborhoods when we start seeing these athletes and they just don't know who they are outside of, whatever sport that they can play.
No, that's good.
Church.
The one thing that when I thought about that story, the one thing that I wanted to add to the conversation, or the main thing that I wanted to add to the conversation, was I remember when we were having a conversation a couple weeks ago about the NIL deals, and I was gun ho on that. These guys should be unlimited. They should be able to make what they want to make, right? But when I thought about that young man, what came to my mind was money only amplifies whatever's going on in you, right? Yeah. So the more money you get, because I thought about one-sided. Now they're able to help their families, they're able to help themselves. I'm thinking about the wealth differential within the U.S. And so now we can kind of even if we moved the meter a little bit, we moved it, to bring some balance to that economical difference. But money amplifies what's in you. So like Rail was saying, when these young boys got family members who are attached to them, who come from and I don't want to highlight no particular area because you got issues whether you're in the suburbs or you're in the urban area, but you got these young boys who are not used to money and their families are not used to money, and they counting on you to get, like you said, to get them in a certain place because they see the talents and they see the gifts. And then when you get them there, now there's a different level of pressure that kind of can pull you away from even the sport now, because now you got to pay everybody bills. You got all the homeboys popping up out the woodworks that want to hang with you, and they're doing drugs, and so now you're on drugs, and or everything's amplified. And so my greatest wish would be, and I don't know how likely this is, but that with these NIL deals, that they give these boys some type of counseling around them, some type of mentorship attached with it, because everybody's not used to money. And now that you can get it at a younger level, as I stated, it has the opportunity to amplify all the wrong as well as the good, but all the wrong, and the wrong has a real strong tug that can derail everything. And so that's where when I went to looking into the story with the young dude, he was, it was a lot going on with him. He got guns, he's shooting here, he's shooting there. But I knew he had an NIL deal, he got some money. And just even on a side note, you got the guy from Tennessee, the quarterback from Tennessee, who told Tennessee if they don't give him $4 million more or a Bugatti, he's not even gonna play. So now you get into a whole nother realm with these NIL deals. And so, I just wish these boys could get some type of counseling, man.
I'm gonna be honest, and that was one that I thought about too, to get the quarterback from Tennessee, and they cut him, and then he went out, put himself in the portal. From my understanding, he's been picked up, and he's making less than he was making, but he wanted more. So those are the things. But here's one of the things that I've seen, right? Okay, so right now we're a track family, and I've seen these young kids, young, like my son's age and younger, that are TikTok and YouTube phenomenons, right? When they come out there to the track at these big meets, the kids go crazy over them, right? I've seen to where their presence okay. So some of our kids, here's one instance, and I ain't gonna call their names, but some of our kids wanted to take pictures with this one kid. Now he was just walking around and whatever. And so our kids went to try to take a picture. And this kid, we're talking 12 years old saying, I got to ask my dad before I take a picture if it's okay. These are little kids. So automatically you see what type of pressure they're under, right? And so, and this stuff starts off young because we notice when a kid got it, when he's gifted and he got it.
Mm-hmm.
And that pressure get put on them from 5 years old. And now you go up to college. And now you got the NIL deal coming in. You know, and the NIL deal isn't just with the school. You're talking about sponsorships. You're talking about getting signed with Nike. You know, and so when you get this type of this money and stuff, that stuff comes with a certain type of pressure because now you got to perform at a level that you deserve this stuff. So can't no mistakes be made. You can't make a mistake because you begin to make mistakes. Money begin to be taken away.
For that money.
And now, I know, Real, you said, well, you know, I tell my kids, you don't owe me nothing. But guess what? Most of these families are telling their kids, we depend on you.
Yep.
We're dependent on you.
Yep.
More pressure. So what happens when you make that mistake like Lacey did? You make that mistake and you know, you make the mistake of the quarterback from Tennessee and the money is taken away and everybody were dependent on you.
Yeah.
And you talking about
scary.
You talking about a depression. I just let everyone in my life down. And instead of facing them, I'll just take my own life.
Yeah, I mean, just it's so hard. And the one thing that I think is really, really tough for them is normally in most cases that you have some who are now sons and you know they got uncles and stuff that played in these leagues and stuff, so they have an understanding and a better understanding of certain things. But you got a lot of these kids who have become superstars and they ain't got nobody in their family or nobody around them that ever was one, so they don't even understand the pressure. They don't understand what they just see you do good and that's all they know. They don't know how to even talk to you. They don't understand what you're going through. And so even if you tell them, can they really help you? Like that's an issue. I know in some schools they do a better job than other schools in having the counselors there and the sports psychologists there and the coaches mandate for people to go. Some coaches don't, and all these other things. So you have some schools who do better than that at that than others. But you got a lot of guys out here who they just don't have the community around them. And they are on their own trying to figure all this out by themselves. Oh, by the way, there's a whole lot of extra people who aren't really in your corner. They just want to use you. And you got to try to navigate all of this as a 18, 19, 20-year-old. Like, it ain't so easy. But then, of course, on the flip side, if you have one bad game, you got all the fan base, like the Will Howard won a national championship with Ohio State. But remember, when they lost to Michigan, that dude was getting death threats and couldn't leave his apartment. And he couldn't go to his favorite wing spot because he lost the game.
That's
like,
crazy.
Come on, man.
That's crazy.
It's crazy that you're treating people like this over a game that 99% of y'all who are talking about this never played in.
Yeah.
Y'all ain't never played in an Ohio State Michigan game. Y'all just fans. Even if y'all went to the school, y'all ain't play on the team. Y'all don't understand the pressure that's there in the first place.
Yep.
And so who do they have to talk to? And I think that's a big thing is missing. They got to have these outlets of people to talk to because it's just tough. It's a smaller world and you just don't have enough people that have been a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it goes back to what both you guys talked about. The giving that freedom to where they have the ownership of their life, but at the same time, you know, you're creating that space for them to be wrong. So it's that open communication, that open line of communication that I'm always here for you, regardless if you mess up in life, regardless of what goes on. Because we ain't even touch on the point that on top of all that pressure, they also got these females that try to get at them, or they have a girlfriend that they're trying to maintain. You know, that's a whole nother pressure. I'm always out on the road. She's always still on campus. Who's there? You know, that's a whole nother pressure that's along with the rest of it.
And that's for the ones who ain't got a kid already. Because some of them got kids in high school and early. Like, it's hard. So you're trying to be a man when you're not really ready to be a man. You're dealing with a lot of man stuff, and sometimes have no men around you to help you. Yeah. And and nobody's feeling sorry for you. Like, again, nobody's feeling bad for you. Everybody's like, "Wow, you making $2 million a year? What you complaining about?" As if money is the only thing that happens in this life. But again, I think that's where, back in the day, you hear many, many stories about it. The church used to be a part of the community so much that as superstars were coming up and all of that, the church was still involved. Even if they didn't necessarily go to church, the church was involved. The community was involved to take care of them, to help them, to show them what it was supposed to be.
Yes.
And then when they went off, they knew they had people behind them. Even if it wasn't dad, even if it wasn't mom, they had somebody they could call. They had a pastor they could talk to. They had a deacon they could talk to. They had a family friend or an uncle that they could call when they just needed to be able to talk about anything but the game.
Yeah.
I don't need to talk about the game. I've lived the whole thing. I need to talk about something else. And that's missing because, again, as we've grown in economic status, we've actually shrunk our community. We've decided that, our community needs to be smaller and smaller and smaller. When we didn't have anything, we all shared everything. We was all out there together. But as we started to get more, we've kind of shrunk that, and shrinking that has created cracks in the bonds that we're supposed to have with people. So again, even with that, I think there is a space for the church to do better in community wise. There's no reason that if you got kids at your church or parents or that are playing at the game, why isn't the church showing up for these kids? Yeah. Why aren't we the main ones out there with signs and telling them, we go and cheering them on and all that? Like, why aren't we? Those are things that we should be.
I can tell you why. Because we demonizing everything. That's why.
So this is Waterboy. This Waterboy now. The football is the devil.
Come on, for real.
With the foosball.
For real. You letting that boy play sports? Why? That's the devil. Come on, man. Everything is the devil.
Yep. But this is how important this should be for us and for the church, man. Listen, this is the CDC.gov. They said that men make up 50% of the population, but nearly 80% of suicide. 80% of suicide, we're only 50% of the population.
And I
so the church,
I understand completely.
Yeah.
I 100%
church,
understand it.
We have a job. We have a big job ahead of us. Yeah,
we do. I understand it because I've been at that point where I felt like I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I've been there. Like, seriously, I was younger on having kids, and it just seemed like life wasn't going right. I was supposed to be doing this. I was supposed to be better at this. The sports was supposed to work, all this other stuff. And when stuff wasn't working out, there was a time when I was like, I don't know. I don't know if this is worth it. And that's growing up in the church. But here's the thing. When I grew up in the church, we didn't talk about this stuff at the church.
Yeah.
I didn't have conversations with the guys or older guys telling me or giving me the real conversations and stuff, which I try to have with everybody I can, all the kids and everybody else I can, because we have all this knowledge and we can quote scripture, but we don't know how to use it. We don't even know we don't use it properly. Like, we act like depression is cured by saying 2 or 3 prayers in a week and we good. Like, that's not, it's not real.
Mm-mm.
That is not real.
Yes.
But these are the things that anxiety, all these things that are happening with us, we don't we outside the church for 6.5 days. We talking about it outside the church. And for that half day we in church, we ain't talking about those things.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we got to talk about the spiritual stuff, but we also got to talk about how that impacts us in our everyday life. That is very, very important, because what you don't see with Christ in the Gospels is him just talking about spiritual. He talked with them about their life here on earth as well. And he dealt with them where they are. So we have to do that. And we can't make it seem like these things are off limits because they're hard or they're controversial to some people. We have to deal with it.
Yeah.
We have to.
Yeah.
And with our men being separated the way we are, and men not coming to church as much and all those other things, I can believe that's that 100%.
Yeah. We ought to be like, and you said, like, we ought to be at our kids' games that's in the church. We ought to be there. We ought to cheer them on. But we also, if they mess up, we need to be there with the love and lifting them up, letting them know, yo, it's all right. It's all right. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Look, New King James Version, Proverbs 12:25 says, anxiety in the heart of man causes depression, but a good word makes it glad. So we need to be there and be able to, that's that line of communication, not just from the parents, but from the community, from the church. They need to feel, when they walk in the church, they need to feel love, whether they made a mistake or not.
And we need to be at all of it, not just the games, but the chorus concerts,
all
the
of it,
concerts,
whatever they're into,
wherever they doing,
whatever they're
doing
into.
life with each other.
Whatever.
It's about doing life. That's part of the church, is doing life with each other. So
yes,
whatever you got going on in your life, I want to be a part of it, if I can be a part of it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Wow, gentlemen. And I think we already hit pretty much the last one of those three was mental health from adulthood to family man.
Just a teeny bit, but it's a lot there too.
We
left a lot on the bone on that one.
We can run that one back because that's a lot of meat on that bone.
Really?
Yes, we touched on it. Like I said, we can definitely go deeper on it. But when it comes down to, and we only touched on it from the aspect of being the parent of the kids. We ain't talked about it of the being the man, being the head, being the man, from adulthood, which means being a man, just being grown, right, to being the family man, the head of the household, and the struggles and the pressure that comes from that. So we're going to deal with that next week. We're going to deal with that next week on top of the other topic that we was going to talk about, fellas. Man, it was a lot that needed to be unfolded, just dealing with, you know, our children just growing up from elementary to college and being those athletes. It was a lot that needed to be unfolded and needed to be dealt with. You know, I know that it's going to be heard. I've been keeping up, fellas. I've been keeping up with the views and everything, and we've been getting some good traction out there, and I've been getting great feedback from it. So we're going to keep up the work. We're going to keep up God's work, man, and continue to put it out there, because there's some people that need to hear from good, devoted men of God, right? That know, that been through something in life and now have experience of how to deal with it, coming from the way that Christ wants us to handle things. So, hey, listen, man, I love you guys. I'm gonna be honest. God placed y'all in my life, I believe, for this moment. So we can go out and be able to go out here and touch people's lives. And we can't touch everybody, but this platform, it could reach more people this way than we can, you know what I'm saying, face to face. So I thank y'all, gentlemen, for even being on here with me. Man, I love y'all guys. Church, if you don't mind, if your prayers out.
Yes, sir. I don't mind at all. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that you've blessed us with, God. I thank you for every brother, for every viewer, God. We thank you for this opportunity, God, to enlighten your people, to encourage somebody, to bring some knowledge that somebody may not have known, to uplift your people, God. God, we thank you for that opportunity, God, and we give you the glory, God. We thank you for this platform, God. We ask that you continue to bless this platform, God, that you continue to have your way with it, God, to push it wherever, to the east, to the north, to the west, and to the south, God. However far you wanted to go, God. We give you full control, God, of this platform, God. We thank you for this time that you have blessed us with, God. And we want to be careful, God, to give you all the glory because it is due unto you, God. It's in your son's Jesus' name that we pray. And let everybody say amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
All right, fellas. As always, love God and love your neighbors as yourself. Love y'all, fellas.
Love you too. Y'all be easy now.
Bless y'all.
It's your favorite big brother, Mr. Church, man. And I'm telling somebody your breakthrough is in your praise, man. Let's go. Give my praise, cause my praise gon' break it. Give my praise, cause my praise gon' break it. Give my praise, cause my praise gon' break it.